Hey guys, it's Olivia, and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing that storytime video. Lord help me. I've told this story to a couple of my friends, and every single time I do, I end up laughing uncontrollably because it's seriously just... it's embarrassing. Okay? It's not embarrassing, but it's just really funny to me, so I'm just gonna jump right into it. So here we go. So last year I was in this acting group, and fun fact about me, I love acting. Like, I've been in a bunch of shows. It's one of my favorite things to do. So, sorry, getting that out of my hair. So, I decided, hey, I'm doing this acting program. It was like a thing where I went like once a week, and I would do like certain classes on it. It was really cool. I loved doing it. So, this one week we got an assignment and we were talking about making a character, and like playing that character that you're assigned to, like how they walk, how they talk, all that fun stuff. And basically, they were like, okay, we want you to make a character, then come into class the next week and play that character. And I'm like, can it be an existing character? First question. And they're like, sure, yeah, whatever. So I'm like, okay. Like, this should be fun. So I start thinking about what character I want to do, because I literally it was in the almost done with writing the first draft of my second book, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, and I'm torn between Harold and Persephone at the time. I wanted to do Persephone because she would be really outside my personality, and I'm not a mean person, but she's a very mean, callous person sometimes. And I wanted to, or Harold, but Harold was mostly so I could avoid everyone and recharge my social battery. And also because, I don't know, I feel like he'd be pretty hard too. Like, he didn't talk. Like, he doesn't really talk that much. And he's also more of an observer. So I wouldn't really say much of anything, which would make my job easier. Honestly, when you think about it, like, I wouldn't really have to act as much. So I remember going home that week, and we were also, I forgot to mention this, but we were also assigned a monologue that we had to do about that character. So, like, basically we had to talk as if the character was there, or whatever. Like, talk about backstory, like, it'd be about anything. So I'm like, okay, alright. So, I ended up choosing Persephone, as you can tell by the title of this video. Because I'm weird, okay? Because I decided to choose the murderer. I don't know, whatever. Water. Water is important. Anyways, so I start trying, so all week, let's just say someone didn't really think about that monologue. So this monologue had to be 3 to 5 minutes, and we had to write it ourselves, and then we had to come in and memorize it. Thing is, I did it the night before. Yeah, the night before. Go younger me. Anyways, so I did it the night before, and I memorized it the morning I was supposed to go. Great. That turns out to be a disaster, but we'll get into that later. So basically, I curl my hair that morning because I'm like, Persephone vibes. And, yeah, I didn't have anything else that was more Persephone vibes because we had a uniform we had to wear. So I just, wore, like, the uniform. Like, it was basically a dress code that we had, so I wore the dress code. I curled my hair to make me more like Stephanie. I put in contacts, which I need contacts, but besides the point. So I put in contacts to, again, more like Stephanie. And we drive to the place, and I'm talking with my dad, and I'm looking at at the monologue, and I'm like, it'll be fine. So then we go, so now we make it to the building, where it is, and I noticed somebody waiting outside the door, so I'm like, okay, I get out of the car, and I go up, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? Because the thing is that as soon as we stepped into that building, we needed to get right into character. So me and this person, I knew her a little bit, I forget her name, but she was really sweet. And we were outside the door, and she's like, I'm scared. I'm like, I am too. So we wait like a second, and I'm like, let's just walk in. She's like, okay. So she walks in first, I go in after her. And yeah, I mean, like, it was okay. I mean, So then about this place, we all wore name tags because I guess it was easy to identify. There was a lot of people. There's like over 20 people doing this. But we all wore name tags. Whatever. So, they told us to make our own name tags with the character names. So, took out little Persephone's name tag. I think I drew some flowers on it. I forget. But I put it in the thing. And this moment haunts me so much. So, the week before, I forgot to mention this. Basically, he's like, yeah, you have to introduce yourself to me in character. And I tried to avoid this. Because I had an idea of how I was going to do it, but I didn't want to be rude. Okay. So my acting teacher comes up to me. He's like, hi, what's your name? Because, we're doing the character thing. This moment haunts me. This is the most embarrassing moment I've ever... I was in character, okay? And I wanted to apologize so bad after this, and I never apologized for this. Sorry. And then so basically... He's like, oh, what's your name? And then as Persephone, I look at him. I'm like, why do you want to know my name? In the most flat-out monotone. I'm sorry. I am cringing so much. But it's something she would do. Like, tell me it's not. She would do this. But, whatever. So, I do that. And he's like, because I need to know what to call you. And I'm like, crap. And I'm like, Persephone. He's like, okay, nice to meet you. And I just walk away because I'm like, I'm not digging my hole deeper. I'm sorry for being disrespectful. Like, in my head, I was, like, apologizing. I felt so bad. So, then, like, there were some other people talking, so I kind of milled about there. And I was kind of leaning against the wall, and I was listening to, like, everybody else's characters conversing. And I was trying to act like Persephone, Like, I was, like, observing everyone, just trying to get a feel. Because I feel like Persephone would do that, too. Like, I was kind of getting a feel. I was kind of, like, whatever. I was, like, reacting to things as they were happening. Like, for example, when people walked in, I was like... like that kind of thing. Or I was just like, like expressions I feel like Persephone would do. So, after this. So, I'm leaning against the wall at this point. It's been a little bit since I came in. And so, I'm leaning against the wall. I'm leaning back. I'm just like, arms crossed. I'm staring at a group next to me who's talking about something. I forgot what they're talking about. But I'm like looking. And then my singing teacher comes up to me. So again, my singing teacher comes up to me, right? She comes up, and she's like, hey, what's your name? I'm like, oh, I'm Persephone. We have a full-on conversation. And, thing is, so I remember this conversation so vividly because I said a lot of embarrassing things during that conversation. So I'm going to try and give you a play-by-play a little bit. Basically the questions that she asked me, which is only like 3 questions because she walked away after one and she's like, okay, because I think I disturbed her. So basically the first question that she asked is like, oh, how many siblings do you have? I'm like, oh, I have 3 younger siblings because Avalon, Franz, and Trinity. And she's like, oh, they must drive you crazy, don't they? And I'm like, yeah, they do. Even though she, literally threw them all into Persephone and, doesn't like any of them. So that was funny. I was like trying not to laugh because I'm like, I don't want to tell her this. I don't want to tell her like all these bad things that she's done to her siblings. But I'm not going to. So... because I don't think Persephone would be as vocal about that with a random person. So, then she asks, oh, so what do you do in your spare time? And I immediately looked at her and I said, you do not want to know. And I know that wasn't technically in character because Persephone would love to talk about what she does in her spare time, okay? I feel like she would be sitting there as a gossip session. But I'm not ruining my reputation with these people, okay? Like, this is Olivia speaking. I'm like, oh, you don't want to know. Like, I feel like Persephone would also say that, too. Just like, oh, my God, no. Like, gosh, no. You do not need to know that. That is personal information. So my singing teacher's like, oh, okay, it was nice talking. Like, oh, okay. I'm like, she's like, it was nice talking to you. I'm like, it was nice talking to you, too. And then she left. And then I was like, oh, my gosh, at least it wasn't as bad as telling my acting teacher, why do you want to know my name? But whatever. So... then I, like, joined this other group's conversation, and we're all talking. And they're talking about the ocean, and I'm like, I've never been to the ocean. I don't really care, whatever. So, yeah. So they talk about that. And I'm just like, whatever. I'm annoyed to be there. So then we move on to, like, our first class, because basically how this thing worked is that we had rotations. So the first thing that we had was dramaturgy, which if you don't know what that is, it's basically, like, researching the history before production. So, like, for example, like, for Hamilton, researching, like, the Revolutionary era, like 1775 or something, or like Les Mis, researching the French Revolution and things before that, making sure everything's in that time period. That's kind of what it is, basically. So we all were taking dramaturgy because we were doing Les Mis. I didn't get to stay long enough for Les Mis, so I was really sad. But we were going to do Les Mis, and there was some people, and they ended up doing Les Mis, and I wish I could have gone. But back to what I was saying, we were doing stuff on Les Mis, and the acting and the dramaturgy teacher, she was doing she was also doing a character. This was the only other class, we, like, 2 classes, like singing, and we also did dancing, because it's musical theater. So we did singing and dancing, and those 2 we couldn't act our characters in, but in acting and in dramaturgy, we were allowed to do it. So in dramaturgy, the teacher was acting as a character too. She was acting as her intern, which I thought was really funny. But I couldn't laugh because I was Persephone. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, like, you know. And she gave us a bunch of dates. And she's like, oh yeah, just put these in order. Like, this is what, this, whatever her name was, gave to me. And I'm like, and inwardly, I'm like, what is this? But okay, so it's basically everybody else is conversing, and me and like 2 other people are trying to figure it out, right? So like I'm sitting here. I don't remember all the conversations that went on, okay? But there were a couple where I was like at it with people. I was really rude to people, and I feel bad. But there was this one person who was playing a pirate. I think she knows who she is. I haven't talked to her in a while, but she'll know if she hears this. She'll be like, oh yeah, I remember this. But basically, like, she was talking, about, like, traveling the seas, and I was like, well, like, I was being really rude about it. We were just having back and forth banter, and we were, like, kind of arguing with each other. It was really funny. And then also, my other friend, and then also another person who was really obsessed with French things. Like, that was her whole character. It was really funny. I really liked it. But, like, basically she was obsessed with French things, and Persephone kept making snide remarks. Okay, I kept making snide remarks and about it. It was just really funny. And then also, I think at one time when me and this other person were trying to go figure out the thing, I was like, well, I dropped out of high school at 16. I don't remember. I don't know any of this. Because that was her old backstory. That isn't true anymore. She finished high school. But I could just feel, like, the tension. I'm just like, why are you saying these things, Olivia? But, you know, it's Persephone. I mean, like, I'm playing a character. If people are bothered about how dark it is, oh well, they can go cry in a corner. So. Okay, so, basically, then we move on to dance, which I could drop character. And the sigh of relief, like, I didn't think it would be so exhausting, but it was. It was so exhausting. I was like, oh my gosh, thank God. And I was like, we were putting on jazz shoes because that's what we had to do. And then one of the people came up to me and she's like, Olivia, what happened to you? And I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, Olivia, you were so different. Like, you were so mean and you were good at it. And I'm like, oh, thanks. I was like, yeah, it's just a character. It's Persephone, you know, she's sweet. And like, and they're looking at me like, girl, you are so different. Like, I didn't recognize you. And I'm like, how much should I play this character in without even realizing? Like, honestly, because I was trying to do body language too, but I wasn't really subconsciously thinking about it. I was just thinking, I am Persephone. Dead. Because I literally play her as I'm writing. So I was kind of just doing that, except in a real world scenario. I don't know if that makes sense. But, you know, that's what, I mean, like, I think I was doing a lot of things subconsciously, honestly. So, yeah. So, basically, we end dance class, and then I'm like, oh gosh, I have to get into Persephone character again, Lord help me. So, I prepare myself mentally. We go to acting class. Now, the thing is, in acting class, we have to do a 3 to 5 minute monologue. The one I actually forgot that I memorized it that morning, and then I forgot it. Isn't that great? So, I walk into that room. I'm one of the last people to go. I don't know why I did this. I would have just gotten it over with. But I think I was sitting at a certain place, and they were just going down the line. I'm like, great, just let me go. Because I just didn't want to face humiliation, because that's exactly what I was going to face. Yeah, but I was, like, acting annoyed the entire time, and I was just like, whatever. I was making slight facial expressions, you know, I was, like, kind of reacting to what was going on. Then it was my turn for the monologue. And basically this is back when Persephone's backstory wasn't the same as it is now, so I did the whole alleyway spiel. I was like, oh yeah, like, Paul found me, and this happened, and that happened. And I just did her whole backstory. About how I was gonna get... Never mind, I can't say that. But about basically the events of book 1 and how she's reacted to them. Basically, that's kind of the gist. So, I finish. I go with one of the worst monologues I ever did. Okay, so then, after that, we kind of have, like, a lunch break, and then we go to our last class or whatever. So, like, we still had to play our character during lunch. Do you know what I did? They said, and somebody asked, like, wait, are we allowed to step outside the building and not play our character? And I'm like, that. So I bolted. I finished eating, and then I bolted. Because I just needed, I didn't think, again, I did not think it would be this exhausting. I've acted before for, like, 2 hours tops. For a show, like, an hour and a half tops. I've never... This is a 4 straight hours, almost. This is, like, almost... Okay. Taking out the 2 classes... that were about 30 minutes... I had to act for a full straight 3 hours. I've never done that. I was always able to get out of pockets, to get out of character. I've never done it quite like this. So, it was exhausting. It was, like, I cannot explain... how exhausting it was, okay? So I walk out of the building and I, like, breathe this sigh of relief. I'm like, oh, thank God. So, and then me and the other people are talking. So people actually asked about my book and I was like, yes. And then we had to go back in and I didn't really play my character the rest of the time because it was just a class and then we left. So, like, I didn't have to do much of it. And I kind of gave it up at, like, that last 15 minutes after, like, the singing class, which we weren't allowed to play characters for. I gave it up. Like, that last part. So, there's more to the story, actually. Don't worry. So, I come home, and I don't think anything of it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this was so great. Like, I had such a good experience. This was just so... I actually played the character well. So, then I come home. A couple days later... I don't know if my mom's watching this. I don't know if she remembers this, but I remember it, and... Yeah, but I'm airing it out into the internet, so sorry, Mom. So basically what happened was that they ended up filming the monologues and posting them on a Google Drive. I do not have access to that Google Drive anymore, thank God. But guess who did get access to that Google Drive once they released it? That's right. If you guessed my mother, I don't know, but that's the correct answer. My mom got it. So basically, a couple days later, I'm chilling in my room, and she, like, calls me downstairs, and I'm like, yeah? And she's like, your whole monologue was about a guy. And I'm like, what? She's like, your whole monologue was about a guy. What's that about? I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I kind of forgot that I did a monologue about Paul. So then she shows me the thing. Because most of the monologue was about Paul. Because he's a big part of her backstory and stuff. So I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, about that. So then I explained to her a little bit of the story, and she's like, okay, whatever. So yeah, that's the end. Honestly, there's no other updates. I just thought that last thing was funny because she got mad at me, and then I was like, no, wait. I don't know why she was mad at me, honestly. Like, she sounded mad at me, and I don't know why. I still don't know to this day. I think it was just because she's like, it's about a guy, Olivia. And I'm like, and? Like, this character's obsessed with this guy. Like, give her a break. So, yeah, that's about it. This story gets me every time. It is so insane to me every time I say it. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. And yeah, if something like this ever happens again, I will definitely be doing a story time about it. Peace out. Thanks.